Eric, as you mentioned, the price of silver is trying to stabilize here, as is gold. What are your thoughts at this point?
Well, there's some very interesting developments going on, and probably the most important one from a gold perspective is what's going on in the foreign currency markets, particularly in Turkey and Iran, more particularly Turkey, because the lira is just getting decimated here. And today the ECB came out and said, yeah, maybe some of these banks in Europe, and they mentioned the names of three banks. I think BNP was one of them. I'm just not remembering the other two banks, and they said that they have some Turkish loans, and of course, as the currency goes down, the ability of the people in Turkey to pay those loans back with a depreciated currency becomes very difficult. So I think that's a very gold positive development, and of course, we have the stocks in Europe, particularly bank stocks, are weak, and we're going to have a weak opening here in North America, and I think it's all on the back of these are unsettling things when currencies fall by 50% in a short time, both in Iran and Turkey, and of course we had the same thing in Zimbabwe and Venezuela and many other places where the currencies are just getting trashed, and of course that's always very, very positive on a very long-term basis in gold. So there's some encouragement coming from that side.
Yeah, Eric, it is reminiscent, eerily reminiscent of where we were exactly 3 years ago. The dollar had rallied in 2014. It put a lot of pressure on the emerging markets. China began to devalue the yuan in the summer of 2015, only by about maybe half of what they've devalued this year. And all of a sudden in August of 2015, anybody can go back and look this up if you don't remember, the stock market in the U.S. fell about 6% in a week. And the following Monday, they could barely open the darn thing because everything was getting marked limit down, all because of that emerging market currency stress. It seems deja vu all over again a little bit, doesn't it, Eric?
Yeah. Well, there's lots of turmoil out there. The debts don't go away, right? They don't go away. They have to be paid. The cost of debt is going up because of interest rates rising here. So it just puts a greater strain on all forms of GDP because a greater part of your GDP has to go to debt repayment. So it's a problem that's not going to go away. And, we've always speculated, when's it finally going to have an impact on stock valuations? And it hasn't yet in North America for sure. I would suspect it's kind of had some impact, obviously, in places like China and European equities and other Asian equities. So I think it's probably likely to it's going to have an impact here in North America as well.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, if you're a Turkish citizen and the value of your lira and your savings in lira is declining, that might lead you to buy more gold. And they're already buying a lot, as are the Indians and the Iranians, and you go around the world. Hey, I had an interesting number I saw this week. The finalized numbers for 2017 gold production came in. And the entire world produced about 3,200 metric tons, but about 600 of that never left China or Russia. So really total production is about 2,600 metric tons. We know about 1,000 got soaked up by India. It sure seems like a rather tight physical supply, doesn't it?
Well, I've always looked at the annual gold mine production. Then I look at the statistics for consumption, and I always start with China with their 2,000 tons. This year, India's 1,000 tons. Russia's 180. Well, I've almost come up with 100 already, okay? I haven't even included any ETF purchases, which were quite meaningful. And, of course, the other 192 countries that I haven't brought into the equation. So in my mind, the demand for gold has always been in excess of the physical supply, and the central bank surreptitiously keeps supplying the market. So I'm very dubious that the U.S. owns their 8,200 tons. And certainly when I see exports of gold from England over to Switzerland, and England doesn't produce any gold, where's that gold coming from? It's undoubtedly some kind of central bank related thing. So, and that number, was actually down just a touch from last year, the total annual production. I suspect that number is going to go a little lower here too. You get comments from these major gold companies all talking about peak gold. So I think from a supply demand basis, things are very tight. God forbid that we go to the exchange for physical nonsense that goes on in the COMEX. I think that we've had, 6 or 8,000 tons of theoretical COMEX supply been shifted over to UK, for the UK for settlement. Yeah. Well, there's no way it's settling. I mean, those numbers, they're just so astronomical as to be ridiculous when we can point to the physical tightness from what's produced on a mining basis. I mean, I don't know where you'd get the rest of this gold. So somehow it just goes off into oblivion,
right?
Which makes a bit of a joke of the COMEX too. And while we're on COMEX, as you pointed out and other commentators, there's I think a record net short position by the speculators here, and that typically has led to very substantive rallies in the price of gold. So from a COMEX perspective, I think we get in better shape every week, and hopefully this week's report, which will come out this afternoon, will continue that trend, and hopefully the speculators are digging a bigger hole for themselves that, of course, the commercials will feast on. So we'll stand by on that.
Yeah, just to add some color to that, we will get a new report today, and it should be based on the price change and the open interest change, another improvement, as we call it in the COT. To add, again, some detail to that, at present, at least as of last week, the gross number, not the net number, but the gross number of speculator shorts in both gold and silver is at all-time highs. And again, for people that don't follow this that closely, the speculators are the hedge funds and the managed money. They are subject to margin calls in ways that maybe the banks aren't when they're short, right? And so therefore, It's very easily for the hedge funds and the trading funds to get squeezed. And when they are sitting on record amount of shorts, that provides, in a sense, some rocket fuel for a launch if we can ever turn things around.
Absolutely. And of course, the point is that the commercial banks, who do, in my mind, operate in concert, have unlimited amounts of resources for this. And of course, the speculators don't.
Right.
So they got them right where they want them, right? They just move the price around. And in fact, if they shoot the price up, next thing you know, the COMEX will increase the margins on the contract. So they got to put up even more money. I mean, when they get them, they really nail them. We've seen many examples of that where the COMEX itself, as the exchange, it becomes complicit in the whole thing. So those speculators better be careful here, because things are tipped against them for sure.
Eric, we should talk a little bit about what's been kind of a rough patch this week in the shares. Not that the last several months haven't been a rough patch, but some of the shares have gotten worked over this week too. Do you think it relates back to just kind of a lack of interest in the sector? You've got, as you pointed out a couple of weeks ago, the earnings for a lot of the majors were just awful at $1,300 gold. I mean, what are they going to look like at $1,200 gold? Do you think we're just finally at a sentiment low for people that want to be exposed to the sector?
Well, there's no doubt that the earnings were weak. I mean, when you have companies like Barrick basically made nothing, Goldcorp lost money, Newmont's earnings were down. I think it was something like 40%. Agnico was down something like 40%. It's hard to imagine with the generals all getting their butts kicked, what's going to happen to the indices, right? So I think the indices have become under pressure, and the ETFs, and if the ETF comes under pressure, everything comes under pressure, right? Because everything's for sale. So that's, I think, been leaning on things we need the price of gold to recover here, because you're right. I mean, most guys sold their gold in the second quarter at around 1,300. Well, today we're 1,210, okay? So it hasn't gotten any better. So, no, it's certainly not helping here. And some of those companies need some rescuing because their gold production is not going up and the price is going down, and they're already not making much money. So we'll have to stand by on that one.
But one bright side, and maybe this will be the final point this week, one bright side has been down in Australia in that Pilbara region. Dr. Hennig had some updates, I think, earlier this week on what he thinks is how things are shaping up down there. I know you've got some thoughts on that too. Sure.
Well, actually, before I get to the Pilbara, and I will get to it, the one thing, of course, we'll have to probably stop having this broadcast, right? Because Alex Jones got kicked off because he believes in some conspiracies, and we kind of believe in some conspiracies as well. So I don't know how much longer we'll be able to broadcast this, because it seems that somebody out there doesn't want anyone to discuss the fact that things maybe aren't quite as they're stated. And of course, Alex Jones was one of those guys that would interview people and pull out the truth, and now he's been cut off. So that's very unfortunate.
Yeah.
I'm saying that in jest, obviously.
You never know.
But it's a statement. It's a statement. You never know, right? We've got to start watching what we're saying, otherwise we're gone. The Pilbara, the only comment I want to make in the Pilbara is it would seem to me, and not that Novo's help in the sense of, providing any documentation in terms of official results on things and grades and recoveries and all that sort of mining type stuff. But it would appear to me that sort of the guys on the ground seem to be able to more readily determine where things should be. And of course, they can't officially quantify it under sort of what we call JORC rules and or 43-101 rules yet. But it just would seem that most companies are reporting that, they're certainly finding nuggets down there. And I think the whole Pilbara play is coming together here. It's taking way too long, unfortunately. And I say that, as you know, I'm a director of Novo. It's been frustratingly long in terms of proving exactly what is there. But I just wanted to remind people, I think the prize could be very large here. So you want to be patient because it could be a very large payoff. So those are really my comments on that.
All righty then. Well, hopefully the payoff will begin soon, not only for those equities down there in Australia, but every place. It has been a tough 100 days or so. And though it does not yet look like we've turned the corner, boy, with some of the things we've discussed, I think folks can see where the corner is, at least within sight. To that end, I want to wrap up by pointing out, Eric, one of your favorites that we've discussed before, the Queen's Beast Black Bull of Clarence. Remember that one, that gold coin?
I remember it, yeah. Yeah, my favorite coin, right?
Yeah. We got Clarence. We got Clarence from Sprott Money. We're offering this baby again. Again, it's a 1 ounce. It's a whole series of coins, the Queen's Beast Black Bull of Clarence gold coin. Man, I'm just going to have to get one of these babies myself just to say I have one. Lowest price is guaranteed from SprottMoney.com. So for our Canadian listeners, oh, heck, Eric, maybe you're going to have to buy one and ship it to me. You can take advantage of this special promotion. Again, call Sprott Money, 888-861-0775, or just go to SprottMoney.com to buy one online. You got to take advantage of this now before it's too late. So, Eric, come on, you're my buddy. Pick up one of these babies and ship it down.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I'll see what I can do. It sounds like a hell of a deal. I better get on it right now.
Black Bull of Clarence. It's just, I got to have one. All right, my friend. Again, provided that the powers that be do not shut us down, and we joke about that, but that is a very disturbing development. That what is it? Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of free assembly. All of that is apparently guaranteed in the very First Amendment here to our Constitution. But that's just an old. Who reads that kind of stuff anyway? That thing's 250 years old, Eric. Nobody cares about that, right?
Yeah, it wasn't very well thought out at the time.
No, those guys were dopes. They didn't know what they were doing. Anyway, my friend, hopefully we'll be around next week. We'll do this again. In the meantime, have a great weekend.